My name is Natalia Lemarquis. I am, as you can see on my Zoom background, I am a founder of CrewMote, which is an idea stage software yet to manage the projects remotely. I do have quite a lot of experience in project management for jet engine industry. I used to work for Rolls-Royce for many years, managing complex projects. And today I will be talking about reading that across to project management on the moon. So it's a co-founder of Forward to Space organization. This is something that aims for a sustainable future of society in the extraterrestrial settlements. I'm also the NASA Space Program mentor, and I strongly encourage you to join the organization. So having an experience in project management led me to discuss the topic and read across to the lunar surface. Why thinking at all about the lunar management is because with the Artemis program, we will soon have people staying permanently on the moon. However, with time, this activity will increase. There is quite a commercial pressure now to go to the moon, extract resources, or settle different projects. So with this increased commercial activity, the number of people will start, that will be inhabiting the moon will start growing, and the number of projects will also start to grow. I came across a study from the University of Bordeaux of Jean-Marc Salotti, who calculated with the mathematical model of how many people should be living in the optimal number of people that should be living in the extraterrestrial settlement to satisfy the commercial activities and the organization of the base, and it's about 110. So this is my assumption for today. So I presume that it will be about 110 people based to start introducing the project management techniques, and that will be an interesting number. I'll present you later. So my view on what the management techniques should be. You might think that the project management techniques could be tested in the analog missions, where my thoughts are that with the growing population, it would be very difficult to actually assess how to manage projects in the analog, mainly because there would be people, 100 people would be also stationary there on the rotational basis. So it would be quite impossible to select people with the right personalities. In the current analog missions that are quite popular at the moment, you have personalities and characters selected carefully to work together. Now, in the future of the lunar commercial activities, you won't have that opportunity. So you might say, okay, but there are bases in, for instance, in Antarctica that you could test how to manage projects in there. Well, within the commercial activities on the lunar base, there would be additional pressure coming from particularly the commercial delivery, which would be dependent on providing metrics to the Earth or to owner of companies or governments. So what kind of activities you might come across in the lunar base? Mr. Salotti that I mentioned before, in his study, he distinguishes 5 different pillars, which are the buildings, the social ecosystems, energy, and industry. Those are the pillars of activities that will happen on the lunar surface. I provided some examples of what kind of projects you might expect within those activities. And just a reminder to everyone that is not involved in the project management, the project is introduction of change. So it's a finite activity that will introduce something new to the daily, day-to-day activities of a company or organization. it will have certain budget, and it needs to be reported. So, for example, within building activity, it could be the rearrangement of the base. For the social, it could be creating an event. For industry, it's developing the new extraction solution, or maybe developing some changes to manufacture agriculture. Those changes would be providing some new solutions to develop the base. So just an introduction to what are the management techniques at the moment. I listed two main that I tested in my life with managing projects, and we currently do that when working for the company that delivers the small Earth observation satellites. It's the waterfall and the agile technique. There are also other project management techniques that I listed here, but I wouldn't consider them for now because they would be related to the economies of scale, which we are at least a few years ahead from, away from introducing that on the moon. For now, I would consider waterfall and agile as a pinpoint of totally different techniques. So waterfall is the sequential, so you introduce step-by-step planning of the project. You plan the stakeholders, and you do the schedule, and then you execute the delivery and the official project closure with the lessons learned. This technique would be applicable for the projects, for instance, on the space station, where you can train everything on the Earth and then carefully plan it, develop the procedure, and then sequentially execute that on the orbit. And with the lunar base, it is quite difficult to execute that, especially because the environment is not known, as we cannot exactly predict what will happen. There are some difficulties in management that I will talk later. Also, the teams will here heavily be reliant on the leadership. And I think the main problem of that technique is that the leadership will also have will have to have the significant experience in the project management, which creates a need that the astronauts that will be going to the lunar base in the future not only will have to have a scientific knowledge or the engineering knowledge, but also they would have to be specifically trained to as project managers, right? As for the agile, this is very teamwork oriented method where you develop the project in the small increments. It's usually applicable on Earth to develop the software because it heavily relies on delivering the small increment of the project and cooperating with the customer in order to see whether it works. Now, when considering the updates to the manufacturing or extraction technique or developing the new tools or implementing them, fully agile technique might probably not be applicable, as the communication might be disrupted, especially because of the distance towards the base to the environment of the moon, and also reporting to the Earth. What I would propose here is that, firstly, in my view, the leadership team needs to be very heavily trained on the project management, and also developing a specific technique which would be a mixture between the waterfall and the agile project management. That would be a planning and executing the small increments, but giving the possibility for the crew that will be executing that project to really train and prepare some situation that might impose a hazard on the safety. So when talking about challenges, why are we considering challenges at all? Because people that will be staying on the moon, it would be similar to the offshore bases, although it would be a trip for a long duration. Although in the offshore platforms, it's the oil drilling platforms, people are motivated mainly by the money that are getting for the compensation, and also are stationing there for about 3 months. On the moon surface, it will be a bit too costly to turn around people between the Earth and the moon every 3 months. That will might reflect negatively on their personal motivation, as people living there will be not only 24 hours they're stationary, also the whole life will be really moved to the lunar base. And if they would only be involved in delivering the products, like extracting resources, they might lose their motivation. The loss of motivation might impact the conflict, and it happened throughout the history of mankind that in the bases such as in Antarctica, the conflict, even small things, might have been escalated towards quite serious crimes. Another thing that we need to consider with regards to the management challenges is the hierarchy of reporting. If we leave the leadership team on Earth, like such as a headquarters, people stationary on the lunar surface and lunar base might get frustrated with not having the decision-making power of introducing some improvements on the lunar base without having a prior approval from the Earth. Leaving the independency of the lunar base or lunar settlement might introduce as well some discrepancy in dependency on Earth. So some of the projects might not, the leadership team might struggle with planning the scope of the projects exactly, as the environment is not yet fully understood and the solutions might not be fully tested. Obviously, you can do some tests prior on the Earth, but the reality will show what we can expect on the lunar surface. So it's considering the commercial projects, it might imply the cost creep and the scope creep and the cost overrun. Also, we need to consider how to develop the tools, meaning either they will be developed on the lunar surface, or they would have to be brought from Earth. So to do any new project and new solution introduction, you would have to be dependent on the tools from the laboratory. If you take into account that sometimes when you feel under the weather, you go to work and you don't really want to do it on that day, you don't feel very well, you might take into account that on the moon, your circadian rhythm might be disrupted as well, with the duration of the day, which is significantly longer on the lunar surface and different environments. The fact that you cannot meet with your family, the fact that you cannot really enjoy what we can enjoy on the Earth. Also, the challenge in the management is that the fact that mostly people will be working on EVA, which is the distance, and there is the distance between the sites of one base. So having said that, as I mentioned, I founded the CrewMote, which is really an idea of boosting efficiency by managing the tasks. It's mostly for remote working on the Earth, but I think it can be read across to the lunar base as well. What I believe is that giving people the ownership of their own training, which leads to developing their skills, will promote motivation and also promote solving or preventing the conflicts. What the CrewMote is doing is matching the interest of a person in the population with the tasks that are currently available to work on. So people might, thanks to that, the managers will not have to micromanage people, and also people might find very rewarding to bring back the community with the skills that they do have. For instance, if I can give you an example, if you are working as a scientist, but on the other hand, you are a handyman, that would like to train a little bit on the improvement of the electrical system of the lunar base, the key for the community is to utilize your skills in the most effective way. This is what, in my opinion, would be the future. So with the current situation, when for most of the people working remotely, it would be also very effective on it, and we can train that. I am happy to see numerous people listening to my view on the project management, and I'm happy to take any of your questions. Thank you very much. I think, Clarence, I can see one question in the chat from HS Chang. Could you offer us any education advice for entering this function role of being a PM in space? So yes, I think it is very important to introduce that well, and many companies on the Earth now are seeing the advantage of the project management. So to avoid lack of communication, firstly, and this could be a very serious problem in the lunar base and generally in space, mainly because of the studies that I'm familiar with from University College London, that implied that with the microgravity and the environment in space, the communication may be disrupted. On the lunar surface, it would be in my opinion, the distance that will be between people, so between the leadership team and the actual people delivering the work. So the communication here would be the PM role. Also, you mentioned here that this question is geared toward the skill gap. And of course, the project management skill set lies also within the people management and the commercial management of the project, which means the delivering metrics and so on. So project management manager has to choose the right technique, how to deliver the project with the benefit, and also needs to understand that the people have to be managed correctly to avoid any conflicts and avoid the situation when they do not perform, which is a very important role. There's a lot of talks about having psychologists on the lunar surface, but I think not everybody really likes to open up to the psychologist. But I think project management role is to also make sure that people there are happy. Thank you for the question. It's a very good question.
Hey, Natalia, was there anything in particular that set you on this particular path of pursuing this aspect of lunar development?
Hi, thanks, Jim. Yes, so I'm, because of my experience in project management, I see that it's really important in managing the projects on the Earth, because without the good project management, you can have very, very skilled people, but have a very unsuccessful project. And I think now the commercialization of and delivering the commercial projects on the lunar base or Mars in the future, it lets us, it is an opportunity to do things right from the beginning. So it's also a sort of a reset. So I think here it's important to start thinking about it right now. How can we deliver those projects so we can get benefits, planning ahead, and also with all those challenges that we already can think about, we can now think about this, avoiding them.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see also another question in the chat. Clarence, do you mind if I read that out? So what kind of beneficial support do you see coming from an Earth management team for a distant lunar project management team? Would it be primarily for technical assistance such as engineering or product for 3D printing on the moon? Yes, so I researched that a lot as well, because it's a good question, whether we should leave the authority on the Earth leading the team from the distance. And I think working as a project management, I know that how important is working closely with the team and be there for any struggles that they might encounter. Also, I think managing projects from the Earth would impose a very authoritative view on the projects. The project management manager needs to know the realities of what people will encounter and what are the problems. So in my opinion, it's not possible really to manage the project from such a distance. But also we need to take into account that the project management, we need to have some level of support from here, of course. When you say about the technical assistance, such as engineering, I would assume that there will be subject matter experts, obviously available on hand with the level of communication from the Earth that they can consult. But the project manager would mostly will have to encounter the same struggles as a team. Thank you for the question.
Question, you had, I think it was your second or third slide, you had several of the common project management methodologies listed out. What do you think about the strengths and weaknesses of the different approaches when it comes to scaling to project size?
Of course. So I mentioned two, the waterfall and the agile projects, which are completely different in approach, and both of them have advantages and disadvantages. It depends also what the project is. So the project management needs to have an appreciation of the different techniques. But when scaling up, obviously there are some other techniques available, such as Kanban, and with let's say if you used an example, it's commercial delivery of extraction of the helium-3 and different approaches to that. When scaling up, obviously you will have to have for instance, the collection and the deliveries to Earth. So we need to track them somehow, which the Kanban technique might be useful for this, because you would have to track the lot that is being sent to Earth, and delivering the efficiencies as well in the production. But that would be, or the extraction. But I think that would come in time, and that would be just improvement. But when starting from a base of a size of 110 people, I think the Agile has the strength in cooperating within teamwork, which is very important, and quickly getting the results. So you can then quickly report it to whoever is in charge of a strategy of the company. However, you do need to prepare for that, and that's why I think the mixture of those techniques would be the best solution. So there is an element that you have to really test and prepare.
Thank you, Natalia.
Thank you, Jim. It was a good question. There is also one question in the chat: is it possible to use telepresence for managing manufacturing on the moon based on Earth? I think, of course, it is possible to use the telepresence, and many projects here are on Earth are managed remotely. I also work now as a project manager remotely, but in my opinion, the leadership team would have to be based on the lunar surface to encounter what the what the team is going through and what are the hazards, really, to understand. So and there's a level of, for instance, maybe the strategy for the company could be based remotely, but the project manager, I think, should be it should be based with the team. Thank you. Okay, another question. My experience with remote projects is that the headquarters, an example in the Earth, is continually desiring more and more reporting. How can we expedite or smooth the reporting process for lunar projects? Any ideas? Oh, that's a great question. And I think also by having this talk, I wanted to spark a bit of a conversation. So it is interesting to compare both environments, the lunar environments and the earthly environments, because especially with the COVID-19 situation, we do more work remotely. And it's true that desiring more reporting is mostly for the managers that are disconnected from the team. It's required to get a feel of control of the project. I think with how to propose an idea for the lunar project, it's obviously there will have to be some level of reporting, but that's why I think that there should be leadership based on the lunar surface as well, so they understand what the reports mean. The headquarters based on the Earth with distance, they would need to know what are the key metrics. So there must be a solution for like a template of whether the project is on track and within the budget and on schedule. But I think this is all they need to know, really. The leadership will have on the lunar surface will have to understand exactly how the projects are going. And I think that's why my idea is to give the level of ownership for this to the people that are really doing the project. The project manager is responsible for the commercial delivery, but also for the team. And mostly the team is not delivering, so the project delivery is at hazard or at risk when people are not motivated. And how to motivate them is that each of them will have to find their own personal motivations, really. The money that they would get, and I'm sure that they will be really well paid, is not usually enough to get people motivated for a really long time. So what I believe is the motivator for like personal motivator, it depends whether people want to develop, they want to train, or they want to bring something back to the community. And this is what I'm proposing with my software, is to find this personal motivation by assigning the tasks that people like to do. With this, the performance of the people working on the lunar surface will not drop, and that will give also the managers on the Earth more confidence that the project is going well. Thank you, and it's a good question. I'm looking forward to see your view.
Hey Natalia, this is James Burke. Sorry I missed most of your presentation. I'll definitely be checking out on the recording. And as you guys know, we're going to post everything up to YouTube. So, but I wanted to just tell you that I've been a project manager my whole career. I used to work at Microsoft, and I don't know if you talked a little bit about Scrum in your talk today. That we use that a lot, and I'm trying to find ways to bring some of those ideas for agile projects into the Moon Society, and also KPIs. You know, I'd like to have a project dashboard for the Moon Society. We actually have a website for it called exoproject.org that we've been starting to work on, and over the long term, I'd like for that to be this really cool space project resource for people, where they can find out like not just like the project status, but also all the metrics for how projects are going and find projects they want to help out with too. So anyway, I just wanted to say thanks for your talk.
No, that's great. Thank you. And it's great to hear from you, James, and your experience. And I did mention briefly Scrum and in my presentation, but I think that it's, well, correct me if I'm wrong, you have a good experience in that particular method. But I think once we have the economies of scale developed in the lunar base, then that Scrum would be applicable. And could be developed further. But I think, yeah, the ideal mixture would be between Agile and the waterfall, but it would need to be developed something that by a person as well that have some appreciation of what is the environment of the lunar surface.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned giving people the ability to sign up for tasks that they want to work on. That's how I manage a lot of my project teams, is I show them, okay, here's all the work we have. I'm not going to assign anything to anybody. I want you guys to take ownership of a task because it's the one you want to work on. And I find that motivates people a lot better than just handing them a task.
Yes, that's exactly right. And yeah, I find that is really boosting the productivity of the company. It's fantastic to hear your experience.
Yeah, thanks a lot. No, it's nice to meet you. Yeah, if you're interested in helping us out at the Moon Society, you know, we have a Slack channel. There's a link to it. Yeah, there's a link to it in Eventory, but yeah, we'll be talking about project stuff in there for a while. So
excellent. Yes, I'm very happy to get involved. Cool. Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone else have a question?
Yeah, we did have quite a few. So
okay. Awesome.
I think
yeah, and we're at time anyway. So all right, awesome. Thank you so much, Natalia.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone that joined my talk.